No, it gets crazier. I tell you, every day I see stories that they make me laugh, and I just scratch my head, and I just, you look and you say, well, all right, what's the real agenda here? My guest this hour is Clif High of HalfPastHuman.com. He and his partner George Ure, who will be on tomorrow night, to wax eloquently about his great knowledge about the current state of what they used to call the economy, are together two of the most interesting, if not compelling, individuals that I've ever had the pleasure of knowing and meeting and having on the program. Clif, are you there?
Yes, I am, sir.
Welcome back.
It's nice to be here.
That's considering the other options, yes.
Yeah. Before we go much further, I wanted to just note for your from the last guest and his talk about Dresden. Mm-hmm. You were discussing Dresden.
Human sacrifice. Sure.
And the burning of bones. And of course, if we look at the symbology, what was Dresden known for? China. Frequently called bone China.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah, it's really strange, these the people that are power addicted and their use of symbology.
It's I wish it were as simple as being addicted to it. It's beyond OCD, folks.
Yeah, they actually do believe it to function. Yeah. There is historical evidence, even going back into like the science of yoga from Patanjali, where he warns about specific practices and how to overcome them. And so there is some reason to believe in its effectiveness. But even like Buckminster Fuller in the 30s in his global survey of resources discovered that there was an invisible hand that was directing things. And he frequently mentioned it as much as he could relative to his circumstances. There weren't things like the Rense show around where he would have the ability to get out and talk about it.
Love to have had him on. Wow.
Would have been great.
I've got a list of people would have been just incredible to be able to speak to. Certainly Nikola Tesla is right up at the top. Okay, the story I was chuckling at, you're going to love this, folks. So, you know the whole HIV/AIDS thing and how they tried to blame it on the monkeys and everything, which is a bunch of crap. Reuters, scientists make HIV strain that can infect monkeys. Is it too much? Are these people out of their minds? Or what are they really doing? It's a joke. And then on the flip side to that, you got the CDC hiding data from Indonesia once again. Indonesia has clusters of H5N1 more often than we know about. Dr. Henry L. Nyman reports on it. Cluster of 4, and all 4 died. We didn't hear about it right away. They're sitting on this information, and it's just Henry does a magnificent job of ferreting this stuff out and presenting it to all of you through his Recombinomics.com website that you see, of course, featured at Rense.com. But HIV and infecting monkeys, H5N1 infecting people, it's a fact of life, and it is within an eyelash, friends, of launching itself into human history, which may not be much human by the time it's done. We'll find out soon.
The history may not be all that long.
That's right. 70% mortality rate with H5N1, and the great Spanish influenza outbreak of 1918 and so forth, 2 to 3% mortality rate. All right? You see the difference? These people are getting sick in Indonesia and China and Vietnam and Egypt, and they're dying. Nothing can be done for them. So, anyway. All right, Clif, what does your and George's brilliant work at Half Past Human tell us right now? We've got, I guess, some very interesting Terra, T-E-R-R-A, global coastal change suggestions coming. What's going on with that?
Well, we initially started seeing the whole thing we call the Global Coastal Event a number of years ago.
A singular event.
Exactly. We thought of it as an event at the time because of the way the data clustered. And then later on we had to change that to a phenomena because it appears to begin with a 5-month or so impact and then trails off over or is continued to be active over the next 4 or 5 years.
Right.
So it's not really an event as we think of it, but it may be a geologic event in that true sense of the word, in using geologic in a time sense, because this initial 5-month period that we had forecast is going to be upon us relatively shortly. Now, what gives us some confidence in this forecast is that we had associated with this certain linguistics that were forecast to show up 2 to 3 months ahead of the beginning of the global coastal phenomena. Now, bear in mind that we never really get a description of an event. What we're getting is more likely the description of a story being written about the event after it occurred. So if they get that story wrong, we will also get it wrong in that same context.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's a little bit odd. I mean, it's not weasel words per se. It's just describing our methodology.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, we don't have a prophecy about a particular set of events, but we do have some predictive linguistics that suggest that people will be using these kind of words to describe an event in the future that had occurred in their recent past.
Mm-hmm.
In any event, this global coastal phenomenon is the language about it did appear in January, in which we saw a number of articles hit the mainstream media and go global about the potential for the West Antarctic ice sheet and the structure of Antarctica, et cetera, to cause sea level changes in the near term.
Right.
And so some of the language we had forecast a year earlier as being appearing in early 2009 showed up. And since that forecast was temporally associated with the forecast for the global coastal event itself, we thought that indeed there is still the potential or probability that phenomenon is going to begin sometime in, say, mid-May through to the summer. We just can't forecast it exactly because we're working off of what we call visibility values. And these are relative to the amount of words that will show up in the media about the event. And our peak on that is about mid-July. But we may start seeing those words in mid-May, and then they start to peak out in July. We just can't say at this point. But the event itself appears to be an alteration of the seafloor due to volcanic activity. And it also appears that it's going to have an Antarctic or Southern Oceans focus.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to cause all kinds of other related problems because the alteration of the ocean currents are going to alter atmospheric currents to a level that goes back to the word of transformation. And so our weather, according to our data in 2010, will represent the new future of weather, and 2009 will represent the dividing point if this global coastal thing occurs.
Do you see any tie-in, any relation whatsoever to HAARP and the Gwen towers and electromagnetic manipulation of the weather and ultimately the geology and so forth of the planet?
We pick up a lot of that. Now, our problem is that such subjects are officially denied, and so they fall into what we call the space goat farts entity, where we've thrown all of the unknown things we have evidence for but that are officially denied or officially not spoken of. And these have a high emotional content for us because those people that do have opinions of them and do write about them on the Internet and so forth are always at a certain level of extreme language. So, yes, we pick it up, but to a certain extent we have to discount it and sort of back it out because it always rides at an extreme value level. And our problem at the moment is or not our problem, but our peak at the moment in that particular subject is the chemtrails. There appears to be much more of an increase in the language about that, unexpectedly so, over things like HAARP, et cetera. But we do pick up the HAARP issues frequently.
Okay. All right. So, changes. Would you attribute this just to the flipping of the magnetic poles, to simply stuff happens?
The weather changes that we're seeing at the moment are at their highest level are connected with the category of unknown energies from space or officially denied energies from space and they are all essentially support for that context. So that appears to be our causal factor. ODS,
officially denied energies from space.
Yeah.
Odes.
Yeah, there's the thing. It's our data suggests that we're going to be getting into a very energetic period of time. That indeed the powers that be, as represented by our entity, where we took most of our descriptors from the Council on Foreign Relations and its equivalent in the European community, suggests that there is a level of fear about this.
On the basis of the powers that be.
Correct.
From the powers that be.
So we could presume from your previous guest discussion of the Rothschild Empire and their designs, that they are also at the same time experiencing a certain amount of back pressure, if you will, by a fear of developing circumstances that may curtail their time window. In other words, they may feel a certain pressure towards extinction that they must overcome within a very short period of time. And there's a lot to suggest this is true. We've just found out, for instance, that we crossed the 51% boundary for species that were in existence in 1900. 51% of those species are now gone.
Gone.
Yeah.
Wow. I wonder where we ultimately end up with that, 80?
Yeah, well, I don't know. We're at the 66th, the largest extinction event seen, and we may climb higher.
All right, back in a minute with Mr. Clif High, and the website is halfpasthuman.com. Okay, back with Clif High. President Obama, oh boy, it's hard to say that. President Obama, after 6 weeks in office, 6 weeks in office, is now enjoying the highest ratings he's ever had. What does that speak to the intelligence? How does that speak to the intelligence of the American populace?
Well, it doesn't very much. I mean, it's a system of manipulation. They
are that mesmerized, that programmed, that mind control, that brainwashed.
That programmed, that dumbed down,
that is tragic.
Isolated.
That is actually tragic. He would have no trouble pulling in 1 million or 2 members into a new Brownshire organization if he wanted to. I think his faithful would line right up.
Yeah, there is that, but they won't be able to pay for it. I've heard these kind of arguments before, and at a certain point, we have to start dismissing them because there's going to be a severe contraction in the ability of the government to pay for anything.
Hasn't that point already come and gone?
No.
I mean, are you saying they can continue to print more money and fake it?
They can continue to print more money, and then we get to the situation that it used to exist in the former Soviet Union, where the saying was, they pretend to pay us and we pretend to work. And that will really be the situation that will exist. The Soviet Union was a good model for what's going to occur in the late stage of the United States, because we've shaded away from savings-based capitalism into a